Are they alive? Whispered Trell, her frilled ears trembling as the tiny beings moved beneath the transparent dome. The room was vast and silver, filled with the soft hum of machines and the faint hiss of sterilized air. Above, 1,000 pale lights glowed like distant suns. Below, on a metal platform, stood 5 miniature humans, each no taller than 15 centimeters. Their uniforms were tattered but clean, their faces bruised yet proud. Around the observation ring, alien students of the Varnal Academy leaned forward with fascination. Their iridescent eyes blinked in unison, reflecting the humans' every movement. Professor Wren, a towering Varnali with polished obsidian skin, gestured with a claw. Behold the Earthlings, a primitive species once native to a backwater planet destroyed centuries ago. They were rediscovered in cryogenic suspension aboard a derelict ship. A hush fell across the hall. The students whispered to one another in fluttering tones. Words like myth and impossible crackled through the air. Inside the dome, Captain Leo Brandt raised his head. His voice, translated and amplified by the alien systems, rang clear. "You might want to step back, Professor. We're not as harmless as we look." A ripple of laughter moved through the alien students. Some tapped their tendrils in amusement. Others sneered. Wren smirked, lowering his gaze. "Charming. They imitate bravery." But Leo didn't flinch. He turned to his crew, Sarah Lynn, Marcus Hale, Dr. Iris Wynn, and Lieutenant Cole Hart. The 5 humans stood shoulder to shoulder, their faces set with the same defiant calm that had once crossed oceans, reached the stars, and survived extinction. "Ready?" Leo murmured. Sarah nodded. "Always." The humans began to move. Their boots struck the metal floor in perfect rhythm, sharp, thunderous beats that echoed across the sterile chamber. Thud, thud, thud. It was small, yet unnervingly powerful, a sound that didn't belong to prey. The alien students recoiled. Trell's eyes widened. "Professor, what are they doing?" Wren frowned. "A primitive ritual, I suspect. Some pre-battle chant, but even he couldn't mask the unease in his voice. The rhythm grew louder, faster. The human's eyes gleamed with unity and purpose. Then Leo raised his arm. Between his fingers shimmered a fragment of alien metal, no bigger than a pinhead. It caught the light like a star. "This," he said softly, "is your first mistake." A brilliant flash filled the room. A sound like a crack of lightning tore through the air. The humans vanished behind a wall of smoke. Sirens screamed. Alarms painted the glass walls red. The alien students stumbled backward as a spiderweb of fractures spread across the observation dome. Wren bellowed, "Security! Contain them now!" The smoke cleared. The humans were gone. Only 5 scorch marks remained where they'd stood. 5 perfect human silhouettes burned into the metal. Trell stepped closer, trembling. How did they do that? They're so small." Wren's expression twisted between disbelief and fear. No organism of that scale could generate that energy. "They must have altered our systems." The lights flickered. The floor trembled. And from somewhere deep in the ventilation ducts came a faint echo, a human voice, low and calm. "Lesson 1, Aliens. Never underestimate Earth." The sound cut off, leaving only the hiss of smoke and the beating hearts of terrified students. In the silence that followed, something strange lingered in the air, not just fear, but awe. For the first time in centuries, the Varnali had witnessed defiance, and the tiny Earth creatures, no taller than a hand, had made the galaxy's finest students afraid. The alarms howled across Varnal Academy. Crimson light strobed through the corridors, painting the walls with the color of panic. "Containment breach. Sector 12 sealed," barked a metallic voice over the comms. Alien students scattered like startled birds, their translucent robes fluttering as security drones streaked through the air. In the center of the chaos, Professor Wren stood rigid, his claws twitching in fury. They were 15 centimeters tall. He roared, 15! "Find them!" Trell hovered near the observation deck, staring at the fractured dome that once held the humans. The cracks pulsed faintly, as if remembering the explosion that had freed them. "They shouldn't have been able to escape," she murmured. "They didn't have tools. They didn't even have weapons." Wren's voice came sharp. "Don't give myths power, student. They're nothing but specimens." But Trell wasn't sure anymore. Something about the way those small beings looked at the world, the calmness, the precision, felt different. Dangerous. Inside the labyrinthine ventilation system, Captain Leo Brandt crouched with his crew. The ducts vibrated with alien machinery. Streams of blue vapor hissed through pipes above their heads. 6 hours, Leo whispered. That's how long the miniaturization field lasts. If we don't find the size core generator before that, we stay like this. Forever. Sarah Lynn scanned the path ahead with her wrist sensor. Power readings spike northwest. The alien's reactor is that way. That's where the size field's anchored. Good, said Marcus Hale, adjusting his tool pack. Because I'm getting tired of dodging robot mosquitoes. Dr. Iris Wynn's tone softened. You're sure this plan will work, Captain? If we reverse the polarity, the whole field could blow, Leo finished. Yeah, but that's the thing about humans, Doc. We don't win by being careful. He smirked, an expression full of reckless charm that once led men through storms and stars alike. We win by being impossible. Back in the main lab, Wren activated the dissection protocol. Robotic arms unfurled from the ceiling, their blades glinting. If they are intelligent, he growled, we'll learn from their corpses. Trell recoiled. Professor, you can't. Enough. His eyes burned cold. Curiosity without control is chaos. But then the lab lights flickered. One by one, the consoles began shutting down. The holographic displays turned to static. Trell turned toward the central monitor just as a message appeared, written in angular, unfamiliar script, then translated automatically by the system. We see you. We remember Earth. The lab went silent. Wren hissed. How could they breach our mainframe? They don't have access. Another line appeared beneath the first. Access is what you think you own. Control is what we take. The lights cut out completely. Then, through the darkness, a rhythm began, soft, steady, human. Thud, thud, thud. The same boots-on-metal cadence they had heard in the dome. Every alien froze. The sound came from everywhere. The vents, the walls, the pipes. Trell whispered, They're mocking us. Wren's throat clicked nervously. No, they're communicating. Suddenly, the Academy's anthem, a solemn, alien melody, was replaced by something strange through the PA system. The raw thrum of ancient human music full of drums and electric defiance. The rhythm filled every hallway, echoing through every chamber. The students covered their ears. Wren shouted orders that vanished beneath the pounding beat. And then, just as abruptly, the music cut off. A final message blinked across every screen in the building. Lesson 2. You study us. We study you back. Smoke vented from the ducts. Security drones fell from the ceiling, short-circuited. Trell stared at the words, heart racing. The tiny creatures weren't just running. They were fighting, she whispered to herself. Specimens. Or soldiers. Somewhere deep inside the Academy's endless corridors, Captain Leo and his crew sprinted through a metallic canyon of alien lights. We've got them scared, Sarah said between breaths. Leo's grin was sharp and certain. Good. Fear's how every empire begins to fall. A low hum pulsed through the air as the size core's energy field flared in the distance. Their 6 hours were ticking away fast, and on every wall of the Academy, 5 small handprints, burned into metal, reminded the Varnali that something ancient and unstoppable had returned to the galaxy. Humanity. The Academy corridors were silent now. Too silent. Smoke hung like fog, and the usual hum of learning had turned into the eerie stillness of fear. Trell walked alone through the shattered hallway, clutching her datapad. Every few steps the lights flickered and hissed, and faint human voices whispered through the comm systems. The tiny creatures had vanished hours ago, but their presence lingered everywhere, like ghosts that refused to leave. A soft tone chimed from the ceiling speakers. Security sweep incomplete, said a mechanical voice. Unauthorized code detected in Sector 12. Trell's pulse quickened. She hesitated, then turned toward her quarters. Maybe if she could isolate the code, she could understand them. These humans who fought with pride even when small enough to fit in her palm. She entered her room. The door hissed shut behind her. The lights dimmed. Then a voice came from the shadows. Calm, confident, human. You should really fix your vent filters. They make terrible hiding spots. Trell froze. Who's there? From the vent grill, a figure emerged. Captain Leo Brandt, barely 15 centimeters tall but carrying himself like a conqueror. His boots were dusted with silver, his expression carved from steel. Even at his size, his gaze met hers like an equal. He stepped onto her desk, his communicator flashing faint blue light across his face. "We didn't come here to start a war," Leo said. "We came here because your professor intends to dissect my people. I'm here to make sure that doesn't happen." Trell's frilled ears lowered. "You speak as though you're not afraid." Leo gave a small, amused smile. "Fear's a luxury. Humanity learned to live without it when our skies turned red and our oceans froze. We just got better at surviving." She stared at him, the question trembling on her lips. "How did you break the containment dome?" "You're so small," Leo chuckled softly. "Funny thing about humans, we never think size matters. Just pressure, leverage, and timing." He gestured toward her datapad. "You can't imagine how much damage a few billion electrons can do when someone with imagination gets inside your system." Trell's voice softened. "You could have killed us all." "Could have," he agreed. "But that's not why we're here. We're explorers, not executioners. All we want is to live, and to make sure no one ever cages us again." For the first time, she saw something in him that wasn't defiance. It was grief, deep buried and human. "What happened to Earth?" she asked quietly. Leo's eyes flickered as though he were looking through centuries. "We burned it, fought over it, loved it so hard we broke it. But we survived. We always survive." Outside, a loud clang echoed through the corridor. Security drones were approaching. Leo tapped his wrist. "My crew needs me." "But you—" He paused, meeting her eyes. "You could help. Help us reach the size core before it stabilizes. After that, we're trapped in these bodies forever." Trell hesitated. "If I help you, they'll destroy me." Leo's voice turned low, fierce. "Then help us win, and they won't have the power to destroy anyone again." The door console began flashing red. Someone was trying to override her lock. Trell whispered, "They're coming." Leo nodded, calm as the tide. "Then we move fast." He jumped from the desk onto her shoulder, light as a feather, sure as gravity. His small hand touched her neck, steadying himself. "Don't be afraid," he said. "Humans never forget kindness." The door burst open. Professor Wren stood there, flanked by 2 security drones. His eyes burned with fury. "Step away, student." Trell froze. She could feel Leo still clinging to her shoulder, hidden by her hair. "Professor, she began. "Did you aid the specimens?" Wren barked. "Where are they?" Leo's whisper was barely audible. "Don't talk. Just move," but Wren's gaze narrowed. "You're trembling," he hissed. "You've seen them." Trell's heart pounded. Her instincts screamed to lie, but she didn't. "Yes, I've seen them. And they're not specimens, Professor. They're alive." Wren's expression twisted with rage. "Then you'll share their fate." He raised his clawed hand to strike. Suddenly, the lights shattered in a burst of sparks. Smoke billowed from the vents. And through the chaos, Leo's crew appeared, darting like shadows, their tiny jetpacks leaving streaks of light across the air. Marcus Hale threw a charge onto the wall. "Sorry to interrupt class, teach." The explosion was deafening. Trell fell to the floor as the drones disintegrated in a flash of blue fire. Wren stumbled back, blinded by smoke. When the light cleared, the humans were gone again. On the shattered desk lay a single, tiny metal plate, engraved with human letters scorched into it. Lesson 3. Freedom is never negotiated. Wren stared at it, shaking with fury. Trell pressed a trembling hand to her heart. Somewhere in the vents above, Leo's voice echoed one last time. "See you at the core." And for the first time in her life, Trell, top student of Varnal Academy, felt something strange bloom inside her. Hope. The reactor chamber was a cathedral of light and thunder. Blue energy coursed through towering conduits, humming with alien precision. At its heart, a colossal crystal sphere, the size core pulsed with rhythm, like the heartbeat of a sleeping god. Beneath its glow, Sarah Lynn crouched beside a humming terminal, her hands a blur. "These systems are a nightmare," she muttered. "Triple encryption, quantum locks, these people don't play around." Marcus Hale snorted, hauling a coil of fiber from his back. "Reminds me of the old Jupiter rigs. Overcomplicated, underprotected." Dr. Iris Wynne looked up from her scanner. Captain said we've got less than 2 hours before the miniaturization charge decays. If it does, our molecules freeze at this scale, permanently. Sarah grinned without looking up. Then let's make this quick. I've always wanted to grow a few meters taller in front of a crowd. Their laughter was soft, but beneath it pulsed tension like a ticking bomb. Above, in the Academy's observation ring, Trell stood beside Professor Wren and a dozen armed guards. Her hands trembled as she watched the security feed, a small group of humans glowing in the light of the core, working like engineers instead of captives. Wren's voice was cold as metal. They're attempting to hijack the core field. If they succeed, they could destabilize the entire energy lattice. Trell's eyes widened. Then the core will detonate, Wren said flatly. Destroying this entire quadrant. He turned toward the control podium. Prepare the vaporization sequence. I'll not let insects tear down centuries of progress. Trell stepped forward. Professor, stop. They're not trying to destroy you, they're trying to survive. His head snapped toward her, his many eyes glinting. You're blinded by curiosity, student. These humans are chaos-given flesh. She looked at the feed again, at the small, fierce faces below. Leo stood at the forefront, his hand resting on the reactor's stabilizer. His voice came faint through the comm interference. Sarah, status? Almost there, Cap, she replied. We'll be at full link in 60 seconds. Leo turned his head slightly as if sensing he was being watched. He looked straight into the camera, straight at Trell, and smiled. Something inside her cracked. She turned to Wren, voice breaking. Please let me try to talk to them. Denied, he snapped. Engage sequence. The guard's claws flew across the controls. The lights in the chamber shifted from blue to crimson. The vaporization protocol began. Trell's heart pounded. If I do nothing, they'll die. If I act, I betray my world. Her choice came like lightning. She slammed her hand on the emergency override, flooding the panel with alien script. The guards shouted. Sparks burst from the console. The vaporization system froze mid-cycle. Wren bellowed in rage. Traitor! She spun toward him, tears in her eyes. No, student. And with that, she bolted from the control room. Up below, Leo watched as the lights flickered and the red glow faded back to blue. Sarah, something's happening. Sarah checked her readout. The purge signal stopped. Someone up there bought us time. Leo smiled grimly. Then let's not waste it. Marcus connected the final cable. Circuit's ready. Core stabilization in 30 seconds. The chamber trembled. Energy cascaded down the walls in veins of white light. But then the voice of Professor Wren filled the comms, echoing through the entire academy. You think yourselves clever humans? You meddle with technology beyond your comprehension. You will burn for it, Leo keyed his comm. Funny thing, Professor. We've been burning since our world died. Fire doesn't scare us anymore, Wren snarled. Then perish in it. The core surged. A shockwave burst from its center, throwing Leo and his crew across the floor. Panels shattered. Energy arced like lightning. Sarah shouted, Containment's breaking. We've got to shut it down. Leo dragged himself up, blood streaking his cheek. No, not shut it down. Right at Marcus blinked. What? If we sync our neural fields to the core's surge, we might amplify the reversal pulse. We could grow back to full size instantly. Take control of the room before they know what hit them. Sarah hesitated. Or we vaporize, Leo grinned. That's the thing about humans. We gamble with the impossible. In the observation deck, Trell burst through the lower hatch, lungs burning. She looked down just as the humans linked hands in a circle, their bodies glowing white. Wren screamed above her. They'll kill us all. The core exploded in light, white, endless, pure. The walls shook. The air rippled with power. When the light faded, silence returned. The reactor chamber was cracked and smoking. The core had dimmed, and where 5 miniature figures once stood, there were now shadows. 5 tall silhouettes, unmistakably human, standing full-sized amid the wreckage. Leo raised his head, his voice calm and terrible. Lesson 4, he said softly, his words echoing through every comm in the Academy. Never build a cage you wouldn't fit inside. The aliens who had once towered over them fell into stunned silence. The tiny Earth creatures had become giants once more, and the galaxy's students would never look at humanity the same way again. Smoke poured through the corridors of the Varnal Academy, as the alarms wailed a desperate cry. The air smelled of ozone and fear. Where 5 miniature captives once stood, 5 full-sized humans now walked among the ruins, tall, scarred, and unbroken. Their boots thundered across the metallic floor, leaving deep impressions in the panels. Every alien they passed froze, transfixed by the impossible sight. The humans were no longer specimens. They were legends made flesh. Captain Leo Brandt stood at the front of the group, his uniform torn but his stance steady as iron. "Status," he said. Sarah Lynn tapped her wrist console. "Systems rebooting." The size reversal worked, barely. "But the reactor's unstable. We've got maybe 30 minutes before this place tears itself apart." Marcus Hale laughed breathlessly. 30 minutes is plenty. Never liked staying in class too long anyway. Leo glanced at him with a faint smile. "Focus, engineer. We've got one last lesson to deliver before we go." In the control chamber above, Professor Wren was beside himself. He clawed at the consoles, trying to restore the Academy's power grid. But the human surge had corrupted half the systems. "They've violated sacred ground. These creatures have defiled our Academy," an officer hissed. "Professor, they've grown to full size. Our weapons, our drones, none are calibrated for creatures of that density." Wren's fury turned to disbelief. "Density?" "Yes, sir," the officer said. "Their molecular structure? It's denser than ours by a factor of 3. They're heavier than they appear." Wren staggered back. "Impossible." "Sir," the officer whispered. "They're walking through our sealed doors like paper." Down below, Leo and his team advanced through the Hall of Mirrors, the Academy's trophy corridor, lined with preserved artifacts from countless civilizations. The walls gleamed with captured history. Iris Wynn stopped beside a tall glass column that contained a single human artifact, an old, rusted compass. She reached out, touching the glass softly. "They kept this," she whispered. "Something we left behind." Leo glanced at it and then looked at her reflection. "They thought it meant curiosity. It means direction. That's something they'll never understand." Sarah's voice broke the silence. "Captain, movement ahead. A lot of it." The corridor lights flickered and dozens of security drones materialized, floating toward them in formation. Blue energy hummed in their cores. Marcus grinned. "Finally some fun." Leo cracked his neck. "Non-lethal if possible. We're not here to exterminate students." The drones fired first, beams of plasma slicing through the air. The humans ducked, rolled, moved as one. Sarah's pulse rifle barked in measured bursts, disabling drones with perfect accuracy. Marcus hurled an EMP charge that detonated mid-air, dropping half the swarm in a sizzling rain of sparks. When the last drone error in message stream retry, the once proud towers of Varnal Academy now glowed with emergency light. Smoke curled into the sky, black against the pale moons. The ground shuddered as the Academy's orbital defenses powered online. Massive cannons shifting toward the courtyard where Leo Brandt and his crew stood, now returned to their full human height. Trell stood beside them, breathing fast, her pulse wild. Around her, the alien students stared in terrified awe. These weren't the fragile creatures from their history lessons. These were humans, tall, scarred, and blazing with purpose. Professor Wren's activated the planetary guns. Trell gasped. "He's going to obliterate the campus to stop you." Leo didn't even blink. "Of course he is. Fear makes tyrants predictable." Sarah Lynn crouched by the console debris, sparks flickering across her hands as she rerouted alien systems. "If those cannons fire, we've got maybe 30 seconds before vaporization. I can jam them, but not for long." Marcus cracked his neck. "Then 30 seconds is all we need." Iris Wynn looked skyward, her voice soft but steady. "So this is what first contact feels like." Leo smiled faintly. "Not our first, Doc, just our loudest." Above them, the air turned electric. 3 silver defense drones descended from the upper spires, each the size of a shuttle, their energy cannons glowing white-hot. Trell flinched. "They're targeting us." "Good," said Leo. "Let's introduce ourselves properly." He reached down, his hand closing around a shard of the shattered size core. It pulsed in his palm like a living flame. "Sarah, can you channel its energy?" "Barely," she said, wires sparking in her hands. "But if I link it to our suits, it'll supercharge everything. Muscles, reflexes, weapons. It'll fry us afterward, though." Leo's grin returned, sharp and fearless. "Then we make it count." The first drone fired. The blast hit the courtyard in a flare of blue light, scattering dust and shrapnel. The shockwave threw Trell backward, but through the glare she saw them move. The humans didn't hide. They charged. Leo sprinted straight toward the nearest drone, every step pounding like thunder. Marcus launched a magnetic hook from his gauntlet, swinging himself up onto the machine's armor. Sparks rained as he tore open its plating. Sarah's improvised weapon, a reconfigured alien rifle, shrieked with energy as she aimed for the drone's central core. One perfect shot. The machine erupted in light and smoke, spiraling into the courtyard. Trell shielded her eyes. The air was alive with fire and chaos. The second drone descended, sweeping its cannon toward them. Leo shouted, "Now!" Sarah overloaded the fragment. The shard in Leo's palm ignited, a radiant surge of white energy crackling around him. He leaped, higher than any alien had ever seen a creature leap, and drove the charged shard into the drone's chest. The explosion was deafening. Metal rained like molten stars. When the blast faded, Leo dropped to one knee, breathing hard. "That's two." Trell rushed forward, awe and terror mixing in her voice. "You can't fight them all." Leo met her gaze, calm and defiant. "We're humans. Can't isn't part of the language." The third drone loomed above, its shadow stretching across the courtyard like a second sky. Ren's voice thundered from the Academy's intercom, full of wrath. "You call yourselves explorers? You're destroyers! You are chaos itself." Leo looked up, his face lit by the glow of the last drone. "You built your piece on cages, Professor. You studied extinction like it was science. We just reminded you what it feels like to be prey." He lifted the shard once more, but this time Trell stepped forward. "Wait," she cried, raising her arms. "If you destroy it, you'll detonate the core's residual field." "You'll kill us all!" Leo froze. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air, the kind that comes before the final heartbeat. He turned slowly to her. "Then tell me how to stop it." Trell took a trembling breath. "You have to redirect the energy, not into destruction, but into harmony. The core responds to intent. It amplifies what's inside you," Sarah frowned. "Intent? That's not science." Trell looked at her, tears glimmering. "No, it's truth." Leo hesitated, staring down at the shard's pulsing light. He could feel it, rage, defiance, pride, all boiling through him. But beneath it, something deeper stirred. Hope. He closed his eyes. Harmony, huh? He knelt, pressing the shard to the broken ground. The energy bled outward, tracing glowing veins across the courtyard, spreading like roots through the earth. The trembling stopped. The air grew still. The final drone froze mid-attack, its power flickering, systems faltering. Ren's voice stuttered in disbelief. What are you doing?" Leo opened his eyes. They glowed faintly with reflected light. "Lesson 6, he said, voice soft but resonant. "Carrying through every corridor, every comm, every trembling heart on campus. You can't study life if you've forgotten how to feel it." The core's energy pulsed one last time, bright as dawn, then faded, leaving only silence. The drones fell. The guns went dark. The Academy's lights returned to calm, steady blue. Trell stared at Leo, breathing hard. "You didn't destroy them." He smiled, exhausted but proud. "No, we reminded them." And as the alien students emerged from hiding, the night sky above the Academy shimmered with light, not from weapons, but from stars reflected in human eyes. The war was over. But the story of what humans had done here was only just beginning to spread across the stars. The dawn came quietly over Varnal Academy. For the first time in its long, disciplined history, no lectures began, no bells rang, and no instructor dared speak above a whisper. The silence was sacred, heavy with memory. The courtyard that had once been a place of spectacle now stood as a field of ruin and revelation. Shattered drones lay in heaps of cooling metal. The once gleaming towers were streaked with smoke. And in the center of it all, the humans stood, tall again, proud, their eyes on the horizon as if the war still breathed just beyond it. Trell walked slowly toward them, her robes singed and torn. Behind her came dozens of alien students, their faces filled not with fear but with reverence. "Captain Brandt," she said softly, "the Academy. The entire world has seen what you've done. You've changed everything." Leo looked at her, his uniform scorched, his voice rough but steady. "Change always costs something, Trell. We just made sure it was worth paying." Ren appeared behind the students, limping, his dark armor cracked. He looked older now, humbled. His voice carried none of the fury it once had. "You could have wiped us out," he said. "You had the power, and yet you didn't?" Leo turned his gaze toward the wounded professor. "We came here as captives," he said, "but we leave as teachers." Sarah Lynn knelt beside the remains of the Psi's core, now dim and quiet, its energy drained into stillness. "It's stable," she murmured. "Dormant but alive. Kind of like us." Marcus grinned faintly. "Guess that's the human way. Break everything just to rebuild it better." Trell stepped closer, her frilled ears twitching as if hearing a new rhythm in the air. "Why fight for mercy?" she asked. "Why not conquer as so many others have done?" Leo's expression softened. "Because conquest is easy," he said. "Mercy, that's what makes us dangerous. That's what no one ever expects." He turned to the crowd of alien students. "You wanted to study humanity, so remember this. We're small, we're fragile, we bleed, but we choose to stand back up. You can't dissect that. You can only learn from it." The wind stirred the ashes at his feet, carrying his words through the broken courtyard. Ren bowed his head. "Perhaps we were the ones in the glass cage all along." Leo's gaze lingered on the Academy's spires, where light now shimmered through cracks in the walls like hope seeping into an old wound. "Then it's time to let yourselves out," he said quietly. Trell looked up at the human captain, the creature once small enough to fit in her hand, now standing like a storm-made flesh. "What will you do now?" Leo smiled faintly. "Find our ship. Go home." Iris Wind chuckled softly beside him. "If Earth's still out there, doesn't matter," Leo said. "Home isn't a place. It's what we build when we refuse to give up." A hush fell over the courtyard as his crew gathered their few remaining tools. The alien crowd parted instinctively, reverent. For all their technology and strength, none of them could match the raw presence of these strange beings from a forgotten world. As the humans approached the landing bay, the Academy's comms came alive one final time. A single voice, Trell's, spoke across every channel, her words steady and clear. "To all students of the Varnal Empire, the beings once called specimens have taught us the oldest truth of life. That strength is not measured by power but by spirit. Remember this lesson well, for the tiny creatures of Earth have reminded us what it means to be alive." The broadcast echoed through every city, every colony, every ship orbiting the pale planet. And across the stars, worlds paused to listen. Leo turned back once at the threshold of the hangar, his eyes meeting Trell's. "You'll make a fine teacher," he said. She smiled through her tears. "You already are one." The humans stepped into their small repaired shuttle. Engines hummed softly, lifting the craft on a column of light. As the ship rose into the pink morning sky, the alien students watched in silence. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then one of them, barely more than a child, whispered in awe. They were so small once. Trell's gaze stayed fixed on the ascending vessel. "Not small," she said, "just waiting to grow." The human ship vanished into the clouds, leaving behind a world forever changed. And though centuries would pass and galaxies would rise and fall, every student of every world would remember the same story, told in countless tongues, beneath countless suns, the tiny creatures from Earth who terrified an empire by reminding it how to feel.